Welcome to the Core Women Podcast, the place for women entrepreneurs, authors, and self-starters looking to build community and gain valuable insight through expert interviews with women at the top of their game. Join your host, podcaster, producer, expert coach, entrepreneur, and author, Dr. Summer Watson, as she aims to inspire and empower you through these candid conversations. Lean in and embrace the journey. It's time to start the show. Here's your host, Dr. Summer Watson.
Today on the show, I'd like to welcome Sevda Hussein, who is a mystic, certified High Priestess, intuitive guide, and Tantrica. We have so much to talk about, Sevda, so let's dive right into this and welcome.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So before we dive into your professional journey, let's talk a bit about your past, my friend, such as where you grew up and a bit about your journey.
Okay, so I grew up in a very middle-class family. I'm not middle-class, they're millionaires, but I was adopted by them. It was a very unemotional family, like very emotionally detached.
Okay.
And love and support meant giving money for you to go away and to be entertained by yourself. Because everything was material, I think life is so much more. And love is time and not money.
That is so true. So how do you feel that impacted you growing up?
And I just think if you haven't grown up with money, I understand that journey. But because I did, I also understand that life is so much more than money. Yeah. And that impacted me. And I knew that I was going to love my child or children with everything I had, and I was going to make time.
Right. Now tell me about that. You were adopted, and it was an emotionally detached type of situation for you. How did that impact you as you were growing up? What were the choices, some of the choices that you made?
The choices were to pack my bag at 14 and walk out of the house and never go back.
How did you do that at 14?
Because I was adopted, things were said to me like, oh, you're going to be like your real mother, fat, horrible, or like, you're a really pretty face. But that was a lot of stuff that I would never believe that you could say to, I would never say that even if I adopted a child. And they cut deep, those things. Mm-hmm. And my mother was, I don't know if you know what I mean by like, she was toxic. I can't say anything else, but she was toxic. And actually, I was really close to her mother. Her mother was the most amazing woman. She died when I was very young. She was the most amazing woman, which interestingly, that she turned out like that. So there was no abuse there. But she was toxic. She was an endless victim. And like she would manipulate things. I don't know how to manipulate the situation. And then tell my adopted dad, which to be fair, he only reacted to what was told. Mm-hmm. But it was very difficult, and I was always scapegoated. Mm-hmm. And actually they had their own son, which recently had a conversation which really upset me. He's in treatment for PTSD. Mm-hmm. Because he too, and I think it's harder for him because they were his real parents. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I was upset and was like, oh wow, it's not just, it's not just me.
Right.
Actually, he's in treatment,
Right. Yeah.
That's.
And we each have our own stories, right? So,
yeah.
And our own process and how we actually take in and consume the information and words and phrases and things that are said to us. And so how that impacts us later on and how we cope with that really looks different, right, Sevda?
And I think, trauma is the inability to process something on all levels. And it doesn't matter if you cut your finger off, hurt your toe, or something drastic. It's, somebody can just hurt their toe. But if that trauma isn't processed properly, that will be just as effective, bad on how they, operate in the world and losing something or. So when people say, well, it was, it wasn't that bad. It's about how if you can't process it, it was that bad.
Right. And if you're stuck somewhere and you can't move forward, then that becomes really toxic and really overwhelming at times. So yes, we have to process those things. It's so important. So at 14, you left the house. What did you do?
I just went to my nearest town, which was like sort of 20 minutes in a car. I was homeless for a long time. And then I started selling sex. Mm-hmm. I mean, now we look at, in the UK now, that's called, that would be a victim. But then when you became a sex worker, you suddenly became an adult, if you know what I mean. There was no child sex workers were victims. Now it's different, and I'm so glad for that.
Yeah, right.
Because, you know, that industry, the thing I've learned in my journey, the women I've worked with, street women, that if you don't really leave quickly, it's then even harder and harder and harder to leave. Because the money's so easy to make.
You're right. Right. Wow. So how did you move forward?
To be honest, I stayed in that job for a very, very long time. Mm-hmm. It was only at like 30, I started getting, like people used to call me a professor in the coffee shop, because I've worked in a parlor, I've worked on the street, I've worked high end in my home. You know, it started like when I was still working the walking street, I started reading and learning, and people call me a professor. And I realized, oh, I'm outgrowing this. And I was getting like I'm outgrowing it, but still had no idea what I was going to do, because I'd done that job. They were my friends. And that the industry is such that, you know, you work you don't start work till 3 p.m. You work till 5 a.m. You're really cut off from mainstream. Mm-hmm. And the way now I look at it as a blessing, because actually I haven't got all that conditioning, like status and all that. In some ways now I can see that the benefit. But also it's like, well, what am I going to do? These women are my life. How can I leave this?
Right.
I don't know anything else.
Yeah, they were your network. So how did you make that turn, take those steps in your journey that were different?
I started watching motivational speakers. I remember watching Lisa Nichols, and she's amazing. And she has an extreme story, a bit of a story, but her thing was her husband had been committed for murder. She was wrapping her baby. She didn't even have a nappy. And I watched that one morning. It was like 2 a.m. I had just finished. I was really tired. It'd been awful weather. And she was like, you know, are you actually doing what it takes? Are you prepared to do what it takes? That sentence has motivated me every morning. That sentence made me get up, pack my bag, and leave from one part of the UK to the other. It changed my life. It was just that intuition hit, and I thought, I'm doing it. As I left that house with those women, I can remember the tears falling down my face, because they were my friends, and I still feel that I still, you know, have a mission to me to start a foundation to go back there. But I knew I couldn't change being in that job, being there.
Right. Wow. That is courageous. That is very courageous. And it's interesting what you said about something you did, something you heard. Was that trigger for you that made you take that detour?
Yeah, because I hear, you know, I sometimes hear people say, oh, well, motivational quotes, motivational speeches don't actually do anything for anyone. They just I think if you're in the right frame of mind, you've had the right day, you'll just hear that thing, and that is that hit, intuition hit. And I felt like if I don't go now, I might never go. I'm going now. I packed my bag, I got the taxi, I just left. But I believe if I hadn't done that in that moment, I might still be there.
Right. And then what did you do? You left, and where did you go? What did you do? I think it's really important for people to hear, especially like someone that might be in your situation, who might be on the street or who might be struggling. What did you do and where did you go? Because that could have been really difficult for somebody else.
I booked 3 nights in a random hotel in a random place. I then decided I was going to claim like welfare. It's the only way, you know, I was going to have to do that. And I was prepared to do that to get to my dream. And so, you know, because some people say, oh my God, you left all that money. And in that sense, I went from being really quite wealthy to being not wealthy overnight and not having an income. Because I tried to leave before twice and it never worked because I hadn't done that leap. Right. And so I went and lived in Cumbria, right near the beach. And I used to sit on that beach and do gestalt therapy with me, because I had read a lot about it, that you play one role and you play the person who perpetrated you. And I took my stuff out.
Yeah, you can say it.
Right.
You talk your shit out, right?
my shit out. And I used to cry, and I used to cry, and I used to cry, and I used to cry. And that went on for 1 year.
Wow.
On my own in there.
Gotcha. And now you are here, right here. You're present, and you're a Tantrica, a mystic, a high priestess, an intuitive guide. Talk about that. First of all, what is a Tantrica? Can you explain that?
People know Tantrica as sex, sex related, right? Excuse that bit, but there is spiritual Tantrica. It's about we are sacred. Our body, everything about us is sacred. Everything we touch. Imagine writing velvet words with a velvet pen across the page.
Well, that could be a book.
It's really, I am writing a book, actually. It's really about that self-love journey. I think every woman has to take to really be herself. Mm-hmm. But I also think it starts with knowing that whatever the outside looks like, we're sacred.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Everything we touch, everything we see, and really being able to be present and it really breathe that into our lungs.
Oh, I love that. And you just kind of breathe that in and you live it. So what is the desired outcome when you support folks through their journeys and your mission and their mission as well?
My mission is that I'd love to wake up one day knowing every woman on the planet feels love from within. And she is that lover for herself, no matter what happens on the outside, no matter people's judgment, no matter people's talking about you, no matter what other people's opinions are, and trusting herself to take one foot in front of the next. And our gifts, our mission, our purpose, people say, what is it? I believe it's our essence. Part of my journey is I lost 3 children to custody. When I was standing with nothing in that situation, I realized something very magical, and people say, you're mad. But that was the best experience of my life, because when you stood with nothing, you've lost your home, you've lost your children, you've lost everything that you thought was important. You really have to face who you are. And those are the things that in that situation you don't face. I'm creative. I'm spiritual. I'm love, no matter what.
Yeah.
I'm non-judgment. Those are the things that really are your purpose. Everybody's purpose.
Yeah. I agree with that. And I think once you get clear about that, like you did, taking that severe break from, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to change my journey. I'm going to rent that room for 3 days, get clear, and then figure out what I want to do. That was a huge step. And I agree with you. This is about taking that step. It's about knowing yourself. It's about understanding yourself. It's about what comes from within. Yes. And we all go through trauma to a certain degree, right? And everybody. And it's how that looks, how that feels, and what you're going to do about it. But it's also recognizing it, right? Yes. So if you don't recognize that it's happening, or you keep trying to push it away, and push it away.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. When I left home and I got to talk to other people, one day I realized, oh my God, not everyone had the childhood I had. Oh my God. Ooh, that wasn't normal, the way I was treated as a child. And I was wandering in the streets at 3 a.m. and no one was looking for me. I mean, my daughter's 8, only a few years from 10, and I was doing that at 10. I would be tearing my hair out. But I didn't know that wasn't normal.
Right. Isn't that incredible? So we normalize certain things that happen to us. When I was working in social services and I would see children that were being removed from families or their homes because they had been physically and sexually and emotionally abused, the children would continue to cry for those parents because that was all they knew. That is what they normalized. And so I understand what you're talking about, and being maybe that kid that grew up being exposed to different things and saying, wow, this could have been different.
I'm going to be really transparent here.
Yes.
That made me unemotionally available for my own children. Now, I'm okay with that now because I peeled that shit.
Yeah.
I am the absolute present of my daughter. It is the number one thing in my life. that becomes for anything else. I don't care, I could be homeless as long as I'm emotionally available for my daughter. I lost 3 children because I was on my own. Also, I had attachment things because I didn't have anybody, a mother, a birth until, and because they were emotionally unavailable, I had that attachment issue. It's quite complicated, So I didn't know how to parent. I didn't know that I was going to spend time with them. I was rushing around cooking, cleaning, houseworking. But actually, the house could have stayed messy and I could have just been present. Mm-hmm. That would have been easier. Right. And I wouldn't have been so stressed that I wasn't perfect. I wasn't this perfect mother because I was being a perfect mother from the wrong perspective.
Right. Absolutely. I get that. So a lot of the things that we do and that we scurry around to do removes us from being present. So, but that's hard to get because of what we've seen, what's been modeled, what's been conditioned, what you think is expected. So it's getting clear about what it means to be present. And you are figuring that out. You've figured that out. I believe that we don't fully self-actualize until we're gone, right? So we all continue to grow. And that's the beauty of being human, is we have that ability to continue to grow and learn. And so I love your process and what you're doing and what you're learning. So you once said it's time to build self-trust and your intuition, which is truth in your womb space and your divine oracle within. This is your own wise and insightful counseling. Can you break this down a bit? Because I thought when I read that is so interesting. Talk about that. What does it mean that your truth is your womb space?
So, we have a heart, and women's, I've studied like ancient mysteries, like goddesses in depth. A heart is one. For women, our womb space is second. And if we can learn to actually listen to it, not the conditioning, really and that takes some work to get there. Right. But actually, all we've got to ask is this the right thing to do? Yes or no? Should I go there? Should I move here? Should I start that job? Should I start my own job? Should I start my own business? Do I really love this man? Do I not? Do I really want a child? Do I not? But we have to do some work. Like really become our own inner lover to get there. Mm-hmm. And we don't need to ask. And we have a divine oracle within. Mm-hmm. We don't need to really go and ask if it's the right. A lot of us, I did for years, seek approval and love from everybody else. Actually, we have had that within us. We just have to really build that connection with our womb space to get to the point where we can keep 100% self-trust.
I love that. And being your own divine oracle, being your own wisdom and your own insightful counsel, and trusting that you can do that.
Yeah, because I was in the mental health system. I was withheld without my will. And I took, I was taking at one point 24 tablets a day.
Wow. Okay.
And I took, and it's trigger warning, I took a massive overdose, ended up in a coma. And when I woke up, I realized, do you know what? I'm allowing other people to know what's best for me. Actually, I don't need these tablets. I only need these tablets because they want to make us up. Because I think there's a lot of medicalizing spiritual awakening. Mm-hmm. And actually, my dream would be to have a physical place that people can just be, because I think it can look like somebody's going mad or is mad, but actually it's just part of like waking up to the truth of who we are. That was part of the process. And I just trusted myself that I didn't need those tablets. And I proved right, I don't have any mental illness, even though I was diagnosed with so many. I've been on Medicaid for 15 years. And if I was mentally ill, right, I would have to be medicated.
Right. Well, from a clinical perspective and having worked in those locked facilities for years, I would say there are some people who definitely don't need those medications. There are definitely people who need different coping mechanisms. But what I've seen, Sevda, is especially with young folks, parents will come in and they'll say, give my kid something because they're bouncing off the walls, they're doing A, B, and C, and they'll want this quick fix. But the balance is, what about the changes in behavior? What about putting some things and new skills into place to help that child cope, to help that family in distress, because it's not just one factor. It's not just about the kid not coping. It could be genetic. It could be the social issues happening in the family. It could be education. We are multidimensional as humans.
I'm also multidimensional, and not everyone. Just some people don't even know what, you know. I mean, me, I was told I was stupid. I mean, I feel like that was a lot of it. And actually, I'm very intelligent, even though I say so myself.
You are so bright, Sevda. I read your stuff. I've seen the evolution of where you began to where you are now. It's wonderful. I love seeing the evolution.
I was told by a psychiatrist that I have IQ of 70, which obviously, as you might notice, is not true. So this is what I mean. I wasn't learning stuff I enjoyed. I'm really not a person I can't lie very well. Like if I can't pretend I enjoy something or like something, if I don't.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I'm one of those people.
Well, absolutely. And many people tend to go towards something that they've been told to do or that they know is familiar to them. And it isn't until we maybe get a little older and a little wiser that we look at ourselves and say, especially during this time, during COVID, we got a lot of this, of people doing a lot of self-reflection and saying, what is it that I'm really passionate about? Do I want to go back to that same job? Do I feel valued? How do I value myself differently? How do I understand my passion and my purpose?
I think what has become really clear, I homeschool my daughter. And what's become clear, if a child isn't nurtured or told they're clever, if my daughter does something really, it's awful, right? I'm not going to say to her, oh my God, that's so awful. I say, oh, you're amazing. It was beautiful. I'm always telling, she says, Mum, you're crazy. I said, no, I love you. And I think that if we nurture someone and tell them, people are going to improve. But when we tell a child they're awful, they're no good, they're stupid, guess what happens?
They're going to believe it.
Right.
Right. And I think that was one of the greatest gifts my mother could have given me, Sevda, is that she let me know that I could do anything and that it was beautiful. Even though she had her own things going on in her life, she still instilled that in me. But she also let me make missteps. She also allowed me to make mistakes. Why? Because she said, those are going to be your best teachers, but you're also going to be responsible for getting yourself out of those situations.
Absolutely. And I think schooling can be damaging for some children. People say, why aren't you saying it? I won't send my daughter to school. There's one reason is that once the damage is done, undoing it, it takes a lot of work, and I'm not prepared personally to put my daughter through that. I'm in a position because I'm running my business that I can do that. For me, that's more important than anything.
Well, I love your journey. Thank you for answering all these incredible questions and talking about your journey. So we're coming to the end of the interview, and I do have a last question for you, Sevda. If you were to leave the listeners with some words of wisdom today, what would they be?
They would be, every challenge is an opportunity to gain wisdom.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today on the Core Women podcast.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You can connect and follow Sevda Hussein on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram.
Thank you for joining us on the Core Women podcast with Dr. Summer Watson. We're so glad you're here and would love to connect more with you. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Core Women, and on Twitter at Core Women 1. For more about Core Women and Dr. Watson, visit corewomen.com. Want more support and resources for amazing women like you? Great! Join Dr. Watson and Jen Fontanilla at the Life, Love, and Money Collective, a Core Women production that aids in understanding the key traits that might be getting in the way of living a life that you are absolutely passionate about. Connect with Summer and Jen and find out more at thelifeloveandmoney.com.